They're 12 years old. Let's just remind ourselves, they are 12 years old, these two boys, who have become Britain's youngest convicted murderers since the murder that shocked the whole nation and the world, actually, that of Jamie Bulger. The photograph on the front of the paper, we've shown it as well this morning. One of the boys sent this photograph to a girl hours before the murder. So there was a 16-inch machete involved. How are 12-year-olds getting their hands on machetes?
And if you recall, how many times the government said they were banning the distribution of these machete blades. Now, I know on the internet people can get stuff, but a 12-year-old?
Oh, honestly.
A child. A 12-year-old is a child.
Exactly. There should be and there is an age limit on it, and you should not be able to get these weapons. But why a 12-year-old is even thinking in this way?
Why are those weapons in circulation? Unless you're working in agriculture or maybe the meat industry, I can't see, any need. But yeah, what drives? Why does a 12-year-old, two 12-year-olds arm themselves and then go out and behave in this way?
And a random killer, the lad who they murdered, just brushed past them.
Yes,
that was it.
Exactly. Poor lad. So this is Shawn Seesahai, 19 years old. And they, as you say, they didn't know him, didn't know anything about him. He travelled to the UK from Anguilla in the Caribbean, in fact, for medical treatment. He brushed past his killers in the park, and then he was stabbed. Absolutely senseless, awful, horrific murder. The boys, just to remind ourselves, 12 years old, allowed to play with fidget spinner toys while they were giving evidence, because they're children.
They're children. That's what we have to remember. They're kids. They're not old enough to be named. When people say, why haven't we named them? Because they're juveniles, they're children. And
then Shawn's father has spoken out. I'm not sure, Sam, our director, if we have that interview with the father, but has pointed out that it's up to us parents to, make sure that our children are not able or, have already got
and the photograph of that lad, 12 years old, was taken. He posted at 1:30 in the morning. What's he doing at 1:30 in the morning?
It is the responsibility of all of us who have children to try and ensure our kids behave responsibly, considerately. Don't do this. But your problem is, you do that. What happens if somebody else isn't? And that's what's happened here. And it's just. It's everybody's nightmare.
Yeah.
And it's how, right? And these deaths, the youngest two are 12, right, it's clearly very rare, but when it happens, it is totally horrific. And knife crime, unfortunately, isn't rare. I mean, I speak to my kids, they've had knives pulled on them. I'm glad to say they haven't been stabbed. But at early years, it just becomes almost part of growing up, and they know we're their friends, and you run away and you have to teach them, how to try and handle conflict. We shouldn't have to be doing that to the extent we are.
And it's this idea that it's cool in certain communities for these boys to have a blade. It's cool, it makes them part of the gang.
Let's hear from Shawn's lovely mum and dad in the wake of this guilty verdict of these two 12-year-old boys.
This world is a different world. Kids are dangerous now. And if we don't pay attention to our kids, it will happen every day.
Yeah, pay attention to your kids.
And they're getting their heads filled with poison on the internet, the dark web, which they can access.
Yeah, I think we just need to find a way to stop these children having these weapons.
Where'd you keep it? Where would you keep it in the house? Where would you hide it?
It became a cliche from Tony Blair, but tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime. We need to be tough on the causes as well. Why are these kids going down this route? How can we get them to go down another route and somehow engage in a better way so we don't have more of these tragedies? I mean, looking at the parents there, your heart goes out to them. And I thought, the father speaking in a composed way, I'm not sure I would.
No.
I'm not sure I'd be like that if it was my son who was now dead.
19-year-old son, I know. And he came here just, to get treatment.
He came for a better life.
In a park.
He came for a better life, and he'd have made his contribution and been a great member of society. And he's dead, and two 12-year-olds have murdered him. Right? And now what do we do with them? How, you know, there's got to be a degree of punishment, but you also hope there will be rehabilitation
Should they
somehow.
be identified?
I was thinking about that because what they've done is so monstrous. But it was just it was almost like a flash and it's done. I mean, but did they go out with the intent to murder? I don't think there's any evidence that they did, especially. But why did they have it on them?
Is there a public
conflicted.
service in naming them?
I don't know. Would
it make others less likely to do it? Probably not.
Did we gain anything from knowing the names of the Bulger killers? They were tried in an adult court, which I thought was wrong at the time. And then, of course, they're giving new names, which you can know the new name, but you can never. There's a lifetime banning order. You can't talk about it. You can't identify them. You can't say actually where they are. Would it help if we knew? Right, part of me wants to know their name. I want to know everything about these two kids, on how, you know, their family circumstances in the community, school. I want to know everything. But would it help though? Would it help? I'm not so sure it would.
But it depends what the word help means there. I mean, if help is understanding how this happened, seeing what was happening with these kids in their lives, alerting parents, schools, authorities to see the warning signs, to do something about it. At the moment, it's just a picture and anonymity, and it's very hard to engage with that. Yeah. So I don't want their names to be known so that they can be sort of pilloried. Yeah. But if it helps us, if it brings alive the truth,
well, that would be,
and we learn from the truth, then that is a reason to.
That would be a perfectly good reason.
Everybody locally will know them.
Yeah.
You know, everybody at the schools they went to, where they lived. So it's, you know, we don't know because we don't live in that area, but in that area everyone will know. And I've no doubt if you looked on the web, you would be able to find.
But you're also thinking as well, I mean, these kids, what were they brought up? What sort of home were they brought up in? What was the role of the parents?
But sometimes people come from solidly middle-class, respectable homes and do terrible things. Other times they come from more challenged homes. But even people coming from a challenged home don't normally pick up weapons and kill people.
12-year-olds aren't normally posting photographs of them with a machete at 1:30 in the morning.
and if, I don't know.
Should have been in bed.
Yeah. Does it surprise you that this story is not a bigger political issue today in the general election? In past kind of decades, past election campaigns, this might have been broken Britain, look at what's happening, you know, what have you done? It doesn't feel as though it's being politicised in that way. I'm not totally sure why.
I think because even though they're 12 years old, was I shocked when I read it? Sadly, I wasn't.
Oh, that's a terrible thing, though, isn't it?
Well, I think that's where we are.
All right, I think we...
Because knife crime has become such an epidemic, particularly in our inner cities, and 12 years...
Most newspapers are Tory papers. It's a Tory press. If it was happening under Labour, perhaps it's more likely that would happen, but I always feel to take an individual case and then try and blame it on a government or a minister.
Well, that's happened before.
I know, I've sometimes criticised when it's happened, and it's happened the other way. If Labour people have been blamed. Yeah. So I feel this case, if you got the Home Secretary and said you're to blame, I feel that would be crossing a line.
At the Tory manifesto launch, I'd be amazed if somebody doesn't ask.
Right. What's happened with knife crime?
Yeah, knife crime, because you had Chris Philp on yesterday, the police minister, trying to say that it's a London problem.
He did.
This happened in Wolverhampton.
Exactly.
Personally, it feels a good thing that it's not being used just as a political weapon.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a political football. Somebody's little boy is dead.
I know. And
19.
And 2 children
and their
responsible, and those families affected as well.